Do drivers have any leverage over Uber whatsoever?
Xbox,
Twitter,
Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google, Facebook, eBay,
DoorDash, Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin, the Apptrepreneur, and we are going to be reading an opinion piece, but I kind of wanted to read this opinion piece because I thought it was a very interesting article where the writer for the New York Times looks at the current situation with drivers, with Uber, and asks himself the question, is there anything Uber drivers can do to have leverage against Uber themselves? However, before we talk about any of that, let's have a word from our sponsors.
If you have rideshare insurance, you know what a disaster it is. It's super expensive. Some guys are paying over $100 a month for it on top of their regular insurance. So we're working with an insurance company to help lower prices and get better coverage. They're working on a plan where Uber and Lyft drivers will either pay by the mile or by the hour. You'll only pay for what you use, but we need some information from you, the drivers. We need to know on average how far and how long you drive with Uber and Lyft each week. So would you click on the link below in the description and take just 5 minutes to fill out the survey? We'd really appreciate it.
How drivers can beat Uber at its own game. And here's the subtitle. By forming their own corporation, rideshare workers could win leverage over companies that refuse to consider them employees. This is definitely going to be an interesting one. However, before we get into this long topic, there's another side thing I wanted to show you. Just in case you're having a bad day, this will make you feel a little better about that. But this is what you don't want to do if you're exiting a car wash. There's no sound here, but as you can see right here, there's a car wash near the water. Someone drives off. They probably think that's a road or something, and they drive right in there. And yeah, that's definitely something you do not want to do. Now, thankfully, this person is safe, but that's why you don't want to be in a hurry. And with that out of the way, let's go back to the real story. So, Uber and other ride-sharing companies are locked in an all-out battle with their drivers over what might seem like a fairly straightforward question. Are they employees of the companies or not? The drivers notched a victory last week when the California legislature took another step towards codifying a state court decision that expanded the definition of employee. Uber and Lyft, to sidestep this possible change, are offering drivers a workers' association that would represent drivers but would not have collective bargaining power in exchange for their acknowledgement that they are not employees, who would be entitled to a minimum wage and other protections under labor law. At the federal level, meanwhile, the companies have benefited from opinions by the National Labor Relations Board and the Department of Labor that their drivers are independent contractors, without the protection benefits that the employees are due. It's been very complicated. The line between employee and independent contractor status is dangerous territory for drivers who have undertaken several recent collective actions protesting the company and its working conditions. On May 8th, the day before Uber's initial public offering, drivers engaged in an international strike, which I covered, by the way, to highlight the risks of investing in a company that they say succeeds by avoiding compliance with labor law. More recently, Uber and Lyft drivers, saying they had suffered cuts in their pay, coordinated a price surge at Reagan National Airport and other cities by turning their apps off and on at the same time a few minutes before plane landings. Which, by the way, technically you're not supposed to do that, although I understand why people do that. And that's all I'm going to say. I understand why. Technically, I have to encourage that you don't do that. And officially. These coordinated actions could leave drivers vulnerable to antitrust liability. Ordinarily, workers' organizing is protected under labor law, but rideshare drivers' stubbornly murky status makes it unclear whether they are entitled to the labor law shield. Spoiler alert, usually not. Without that shield, their coordination could be considered as amounting to illegal price fixing by independent contractors who are supposed to be competing to provide services. More broadly, group boycotts for better compensation could also violate antitrust law. Uber has already used antitrust law to block driver organizing. When Seattle tried to grant Uber drivers collective bargaining rights, the United States Chamber of Commerce, suing on behalf of Uber, successfully argued in federal court that the city ordinance was preempted by the federal Sherman Antitrust Act, which forbids collusion by independent contractor cartels. Rideshare drivers do have another option, incorporating themselves. And this is the interesting part. This is where it gets good. Uber and Lyft have deftly maneuvered around labor laws to avoid obligations to drivers. Drivers should similarly take advantage of legal loopholes available to them. Under antitrust law, single entities can be immune from antitrust liability, and incorporated joint ventures can set pieces where price-fixing agreements between competitors would be allowed. Incorporating as Uber Drivers Inc. would allow drivers to beat Uber at their own game. Under the Supreme Court's 1984 decision, Copperweld versus Independence Tube, entities within a single enterprise cannot conspire in violation of the Sherman Act. The Supreme Court has also found that while agreements between direct competitors to fix prices, restrict output, or boycott others are unlawful, joint ventures created by competitors are given much more leeway. If drivers incorporated their own joint venture, they could reduce their antitrust liability exposure risk while protecting their ability to coordinate in their negotiations with ride-share companies and their interactions with customers. Drivers could maintain the same compensation structure and flexibility as they do contracting directly with the platforms, working flexible hours and receiving per-ride salary commissions, while donating a portion equivalent to the amount they might otherwise pay in union dues to their newly formed Uber Drivers Inc. Any refusal to deal with the company by collectively switching off the app, for example, would be a decision of a single firm not to deal with a particular purchaser. Such unilateral refusals to deal are almost always held to be legal under antitrust laws. If Uber sued, the drivers could argue that Uber Drivers Inc. allows them to pool resources and reduce insurance, repair, and accounting costs, as well as provide vehicle financing and selection, cheaper health insurance, and access to better retirement plans for drivers. All of these would reduce their costs and increase safety for ride-share passengers. Pretty clever, huh? Further, drivers could develop more long-standing relationships with passengers competing with Uber off the app to provide sales and discounts to customers of Uber Drivers Inc., and the joint venture would reduce their advertising costs. Uber, Lyft, and other virtual marketplace companies like Handy and TaskRabbit have emphasized in lawsuits, public statements, and even lobbying efforts coordinated through the app that they are not employers, in part because their service providers are not barred from working for other apps or having their own businesses. So, if Uber and Lyft now tried to forbid drivers to siphon off their customers, they could risk exposure to labor and employment law liability. Of course, there are risks to this strategy. There always are, aren't they? It can never be perfect. It can never be so simple. There's always complications. Many drivers value the ease of earning money through ride-sharing apps, so why would they want to form a collective driving business? Yeah, that's true. I mean, most of the people at the protests and who, are supporting the AB5 bill, look, I don't want to say you're wrong in thinking this way. Starting a company is tough, but most of them don't want to create their own apps. Anyone can do it. And Uber could refuse to deal with Uber Drivers Inc. by blacklisting drivers who join or recruiting replacement drivers. In other words, Uber Drivers Inc. could face many of the same retaliatory tactics, lockouts, replacement workers, that labor unions face in disputes with powerful employers. And make no mistake, Uber is a powerful employer. Lyft is too. But just as unions can prevail through broad recruitment, organizing, and solidarity, an incorporated joint venture of Uber drivers could win if it attains a critical mass of membership, enough to wield countervailing power against Uber, even in just one city, which seems unlikely, but of course I'll comment on that at the end. If drivers are unable to win protections to form a union, incorporating may be the only way to gain leverage over Uber in negotiations over compensation and working conditions. The history of labor organizing suggests that the benefits to workers of acting together, whether that is as a corporation, a limited liability company, a workers' cooperative, or any other corporate form, can often outweigh the costs and difficulty. Incorporation can level the playing field, allowing drivers to secure not just higher wages, but also healthcare benefits, insurance, and someone to represent them when they feel the company has unfairly deactivated them. Incorporation is no replacement for robust labor law protections, but until federal and state legislators expand employee protections or antitrust immunity, drivers should be just as creative as Uber has been in taking every advantage available to them under the law. Now, this is absolutely brilliant, and yes, it could work if you had enough drivers to actually do this. Unfortunately, that's where it starts getting a little bit more complicated. Because here's the thing. We can write articles telling drivers what they can do to beat Uber at their own game. We can read articles. We can report them. We can make YouTube videos. We can go to our friends, knock on the door, tell them that this is a great idea. And yet there are a lot of people out there who just have no interest in doing something like this. They might be unmotivated. The whole point of Uber and Lyft is that it's easy. It's not complicated. Once you start forming your own company and the company now maybe deals with Uber, it gets complicated at that point. Nah, shoot, you know what? I just need some Coca-Cola money, man. Just flip on the app and let me go. Don't worry, folks. There's actually water in there. But, you know, unless drivers are willing to do something like that, nothing's going to change. And here's the other thing. There's a lot of drivers who like things just the way they are. Yes, we do know that at the rally, the Uber rally that was protesting the passing of AB5, we do know that at least someone paid $100 plus traveling expenses in some cases for people to be at the rally and protest the passing of the bill. I also know from personal experience with talking to people there, some very good and nice people I want to have, who I do not begrudge at all for having the opinions that they have, were there of their own accord. They were totally there of their own accord. And they wanted to be there. They don't want AB5 to pass. And they weren't getting paid money. They wanted to support, you know, Uber and Lyft, or they wanted to support themselves. They felt like this was the best possible road for them. And here's the thing, the protests are getting bigger. The strikes, if that's what you want to call them, some people wouldn't, they are getting louder. There is going to be more of them, and regulation is inevitable. Might take a few more years, which, hey, gives me a lot of content to work with, but it is coming. And it is so difficult to do what little has been done already. So yes, this is a great idea on how Uber drivers can beat Uber at their own game. Will they be able to get enough people collectively to make it hurt Uber? That could be tough, especially if Uber actually got wind of something like this early on. They would actually start putting warnings on their apps not to join this company, which, again, that's where it gets a little murky, because should Uber be telling people not to join other companies, not to work for other people? Yeah, that might be a problem, but they do it, and what are you going to do? Everything has to be done in arbitration. So, I don't know, man. Great idea, but I don't know if it could ever truly succeed. However, that's where I'm going to pass the question off to you. What do you think? Do you think something like this could work? Would you join something like this? Or do you think it's a waste of time? It's not really worth doing? I'd love to know. So, comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you like my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way, helping the channel run smoothly, and you get access to my Patreon's exclusive blog. Also, if gas prices are getting you just a little down, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free, and you get cash back on every gas purchase. Also, if you want more videos from me, subscribe to my other YouTube channels, Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur Vlogs, and Autograph Hound. And if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers, check us out on the Apptrepreneur Hangouts at Facebook. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.